is Marie, and I'm a member of the Spectrum Mentor team. And I am very excited to be here with all of you today. I think this presentation is going to empower you to go back into your lives and your families in a really powerful way. And I'm very proud to be introducing Brian King. Brian King, LCSW, is the founder of the Parenting with Purpose community and is an international consultant on the autism spectrum, as well as a coach working with parents to give them the tools that they need to turn hope into success. Brian, his wife, and 3 sons are all on the autism spectrum. Through his books, website, programs, and interactive presentations, Brian has become known worldwide for his positive approach to living the spectrum and the human experience. He is dedicated to serving as an ambassador between the spectrum and neurotypical communities. His goal is to help both communities learn to better communicate, appreciate, and cooperate with each other in the spirit of mutual respect. Brian believes that you deserve to be yourself, and the world will love you for it. Please help me in welcoming Brian King.
Hello. That was specifically designed to make sure you were alert. Did it work, or did it just give you a headache? Now, those of you who obviously have touch sensitivities are favoring the periphery. If at any point you wanted to move in tighter, that would be ideal, because a lot of what we're going to talk about today is connection, relationships, communicating. And the more spread out you are, the more isolated you are, the less connected you are, the less you feel like a part of the conversation. And this is going to be a conversation, because relationships require it. We must communicate. We can't mind read, we can't assume. We need to have a dialogue, which puts you all in a very interesting position. Because if we're going to be talking about relationships, what better way to learn about them than to actually have them? Let's have a conversation. Let's have a dialogue. 2 wonderful young ladies that are helping me out today, Marie and my wife, Kathy, are going to be walking around with microphones. So if you have a question, ask it. If you want to add something from your own life, please do. Because as much as I like to think I have a lot of experience, a lot to offer, there is far more brilliance in this room than is probably between these 2 ears. And this room needs to benefit from that. So please don't keep it to yourself. Let us all experience it. Who here is a member of a family? Would you say that one person in the family has all the skills, all the assets, and everybody needs to rely on them because they're all pretty much useless? Or would you say everybody has their own contribution to make? Can you raise your hand if you agree that everybody has their own contribution? Okay. I invite you to prove it. If you believe you have a contribution to make, please make it. Because I can tell you right now, I believe that you do. I know that you do. And I insist that you make that contribution. Because in order for me to be effective, in order for me to give you what it is you need, I need to know what that is. I took the psychic exam several times and flunked it each time, so reading your mind is not going to work. I need you to speak up. I also need you to be here. As difficult as it was to get here this morning, anybody here stay overnight, or did you all travel in? Okay. Who had to surf their way here today? Rather enjoyable. Anybody still feeling the frustration of that trip? Anyone? Okay. Let's take a moment and take a deep breath together, shall we? Inhale. Feel a little better? In that moment that you were breathing, what were you thinking about? Feel free to shout it out. There are no wrong answers. Nothing? You're thinking about breathing. It's amazing how quickly your own breath can bring you here. Because when you are in a relationship with anyone, the best thing you can give them is your attention. And it is very difficult when you are distracted, preoccupied, thinking about what happened yesterday, thinking about what you have to do later on today. When your mind is all those places but here, how well can you attend to the person who's right in front of you? Not very well. And yet we do that all day long, don't we? Our kids come up and want our attention. Oh, not right now, Final Jeopardy's on. Or wait for the commercial. Or I'm right in the middle of something. Our mind is somewhere else when our child is inviting us to be here. So for the purposes of our conversation today, do anything and everything you can to be here while we're relating, getting to know each other, understanding each other. And if you feel your mind wandering, thinking, oh my goodness, there's thunder again, I'm going to have to drive home in this, take another deep breath. Because then you'll go from thinking about that to thinking about your breathing to being here. Because we all have stressful lives, and then our kid wants our attention. And instead of thinking, oh, here's an opportunity to connect with my child, we think, oh man, this is a terrible time, not right now, I can't do this right now. What your child is doing is giving you an opportunity to be present, to be attentive. It's not to disturb you, distract you, inconvenience you, derail you. It's an invitation to connect. But oftentimes that's not how you see it, right? Oh, you always interrupt me when I'm in the middle of something. Wow, how often have we blown that opportunity? Guilty, because I'm a human being. Now, as much as Marie did a spectacular job of introducing me with all these stellar credentials, put all of that aside for a second and understand one critical thing about me that makes me exactly like you. Before being a social worker, before being on the autism spectrum, before being a male, an American, or anything else, I'm a human being. That's it. The rest of it are subcategories. I could say I'm autistic and proud of it. Okay? But that's one small part of me. One piece of the puzzle. I could say I'm a proud man. Still one piece. Proud to be an American. Another small piece. But if I say I'm just a human being, that's all of it. When you think about who you are and what you have to offer, being human allows you to use everything. Do you realize that? Someone says, I'm a teacher. What else? I'm an attorney. I'm a parent. I'm a parent of a child with autism. What else? Far too often in life, we get so attached to those small compartments of ourselves that we deny ourselves the opportunity to experience the rest of what we have. And we also deny everybody else the opportunity to experience all that we have. Only by allowing yourself to be completely human do you have the opportunity to live from all the good places of yourself. But there is a payoff there. There's a flip side. If you're going to use all of you, what's the other part of you that you also have to allow yourself to experience? Is it all going to be bells and whistles? Is it all going to be a happy Disney ending every day of your life? You're also going to have to allow yourself to be vulnerable to experiences those challenges that are the flip side of your strengths. Because what do your strengths ultimately equip you to do? Any ideas? Sir?
Deal with adversity.
Deal with adversity. Do your strengths only allow you to deal with adversity? What else do they allow you to do? Our strengths are ultimately our contribution to the lives of others. When someone says, I need your help, Are they asking you to come and help them do something as incorrectly as they're doing it? Hey, I'm really messing this up, and I hate to mess up alone. Would you join me? They want you to contribute to them. They have an area of challenge, and you have an area of strength that counterbalances that. So when they ask for your help, they're asking you to contribute to their life. My challenges are exactly what I need to make room for you. If I was good at everything, I wouldn't need you. If you were good at everything, you wouldn't need me. That's why challenges exist, to require us to look to each other. So when people talk about, I don't like to talk about my weaknesses. Okay? Well, you don't have weaknesses. You have challenges. You have areas of you that are not part of your design specialty. You have those parts of you that are specifically placed there to make room for others to enter your life. That's what challenges are for. And yes, strength can help you overcome adversity. It requires a lot of strength. But the most courageous act, as I see, is when someone takes the time to honestly look at themselves without denial, without rationalization, without judgment, just sees themselves as they are and says, this is me. My strengths are what make me an asset to others. My challenges are what make them an asset to me. Does that make sense? You ever think about it that way before? Honestly. You're going to have to speak up. I don't mind, Reed, remember? Raise your hand if you've always thought about it that way. Raise your hand if this is a new concept. What have you been taught to think about strengths and challenges?
Handling it on your own, independence.
Handle it on your own. Be independent. Well, based on the explanation I just gave you, what is the benefit of being independent? You get the privilege of excluding others from contributing to your life. You get the benefit of preventing them from feeling that they have value in your life. Because by striving for independence, you're telling them, I don't need you. You've got nothing I need. Go off and use your strengths to benefit someone else's life, because I've got it all. Is independence even possible? Or is it right up there with that abstract concept of normal? Tell me the last time you did something independently. Who wants to share? Really? When is the last time you did something interdependently? Did you ask a question of anyone this morning? Or did all the answers just suddenly fill your mind? You had some moment of enlightenment that gave you the secrets to the conference, where everything was located when it started. You had a download from the ether. Who drove here today? That was an interdependent experience. Unless, of course, you made the car yourselves, manufactured all the equipment, refined the oil into gas, put it into your car. You did it interdependently because other people who had specific gifts built the car, designed the car, made it work. They contributed to your life so that you could be here today. They used their strengths. Just yesterday, I was leaving the gym, and my 6-year-old said, Dad, why do we need roads? So we can drive places. Why do we need cars? Because otherwise we'd have to walk everywhere. So every question he asked me helped me realize how many people contributed to that moment. He asked a question, and I was walking on an asphalt parking lot. Think about who got together, who designed it, who invented it, who laid it, so that he and I could sit there and walk on it and have that moment, so we could connect. Or I could just say, what are you asking me that for? We're in a hurry. Let's just get home. How many of you have done that? Because when it comes to parenting, parenting is about what? That's a big question. And for the record, being a spectrumite as I am and also a human being, I can very often function in a stream of consciousness kind of way. I do have an outline, but this is an outline of things that we could talk about. This is an outline that was created without you in the room. But I am ultimately here to contribute to your lives, to use my strengths to help you. So again, if there's something specifically you need, some burning question that you want the answer to, it will not get answered through osmosis. It will only get answered by asking. So if you have a question, raise your hand and wave it. Kathy or Marie will find you with the microphone so that the room can experience your brilliance and we can learn because you gave us the opportunity to ask a question of ourselves and fill that void with knowledge. So every time you speak today, you are giving a gift to this room. So please take advantage of that. As you came here this morning, did any of you think, if there's one thing I could get from sitting in that ballroom today, it's going to be this? Did any of you say that? Any of you ask that question? Or were you just more concerned about, man, I hope I get there without driving in a ditch? Well, now that you're here, what do you want more than anything from our time together today? Yes?
To take something back home to our children so that we can be better parenting.
Take something home to your children so you can be a better parent. That says it all. Anybody want more than that? And that's okay. Because I want to provide so much value for you today that at the end of this room, you stand on your feet and give me a standing ovation. So I want you to pull that out of me. We're in a relationship. We're having a conversation. I can't do it all. I need your help. You must ask me questions. You must ask for what you need. How many relationships in your life kind of go like this? I'm not going to tell you what I need. I'm not going to tell you when I need it. If you love me, you'd figure it out. Does that ever happen? Is that not an insane request to make of someone? Has anyone ever had that said to them? You should know me well enough by now. Has anybody ever said that to someone? Okay? When you say that to someone, this is what you're doing. You are saying, I am giving up the right to ask you for what I need. Given this opportunity to tell you what my needs are, how I need them, so that I can give you the information you need to be at your best, I'm deciding not to do that. I'm instead giving you the responsibility to assume, to figure out what I need, and likely get it wrong. Why do we do that? When we have the opportunity to connect with that person in that moment, get our needs met, equip that person with what they need to be the best they can be on our behalf, we want to sabotage it? Why do we do that? Any thoughts? Now that you think about it, would you like to continue doing it that way? Or would you like to be more effective? Wow, you all are so awake this morning. If the answer in your mind is yes, feel free to say it. If you disagree with something, say that too. Because in relationships, are you always on the same page 100% of the time? So chances are we won't be either. You are under no obligation to agree with everything I say. Because first and foremost, my authority, my expertise, is in my own opinion. I have my understanding of things. I have the conclusions that I've drawn, the beliefs that I have. Connection is about finding the beliefs that we have in common. Where do we resonate on the same level? Where do we feel and experience things the same way? That's where we connect. But if you disagree with something, is it quite possible that it's because something was lost in translation? As opposed to something I said being wrong? Let me give you one principle to encapsulate the whole experience of communication. I think, therefore I misunderstand. Because do we or do we not filter everything through our own biases, our own experiences? Raise your hand if you can stand here before us today and prove to us that you have immaculate perception. Or do you have perception that has a lot of prejudices, biases, preconceived notions? Raise your hand if that suits you. So how do you utilize that knowledge about yourself to be more effective in communicating with others, especially your child? Knowing that you have biases, preconceived notions, prejudices, how is that an asset? How is it a strength to know that about yourself? Thoughts? Guesses?
Because if you're honest with yourself and where you're at, you can be honest with others.
If you're honest with yourself and where you're at, you can be honest with others. If you're comfortable doing so, if you're confident enough to do so. If you realize you have biases, prejudices, preconceived notions, what are you then going to realize about the way you heard what was said to you? Are you going to think, no, I heard what you said. I know what you meant. I heard what you said. No, don't try and back out now. Yes?
You're going to ask questions so that they can clarify.
You're going to ask questions so they can clarify. Because if you know you're filtering through a lot of unreliable filtering, you know to question your perception. You know there is likely a communication breakdown. You're going to ask for them to give you more information. You're going to tell them what you heard and ask if you got it right. Clarification. Communication needs to begin with you questioning your own perception. Realizing that it's an imperfect tool. It's a very subjective tool. How many of you do that? Have you ever done it? When you did it, how did it work for you? Let me ask you this question. How many of you communicate in a conscious way? Where you are deliberate about the words that leave your mouth? Where you are conscious of the way you listen to another person? Or do you simply go through the motions? Who goes through the motions? Okay? Who is very deliberate about it? Okay? If you say you're deliberate about it, tell me how that is beneficial for you.
You need to listen and you need to filter out what people are saying to see what affects you.
So you need to listen. Do you understand the question, who's deliberate, who's conscious? Do you know what I mean by that? Being conscious of it is being completely aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it that way. And that's no different with parenting. Being aware, being purposeful in your parenting. Is that everything you do, everything you say has a purpose. You don't do it just to do it. You don't react. You choose your response. You don't simply have a response. So how many of you can say that when your child breaks something, makes a noise that drives you insane, touches their brother for the 10th time, that when you step in, you are deliberate and conscious instead of reactive? Most of the time. And why not 100% of the time? Because you're human, thank you. We're human beings. The more we allow ourselves that, who else do you think we might allow to have that experience? The children. If you can be human, have those moments of imperfection, have those moments where you don't measure up to your own standards quite the way you would like, and you are compassionate with yourself when you do that, you model that for your child. If you curse yourself and say, man, that was stupid, the heck was I thinking? Your child will follow your example, that those less than perfect moments are something to be ashamed of, something to feel bad about, things to avoid. So then when the child has those same moments, they don't celebrate them, they don't say, well, that was interesting. They think they have just failed as a person. So when you emphasize all of those little imperfections your child has, you're telling them, you're a human being, but that part is no good. Don't have that part. You're not allowed to have strengths and challenges. Don't show anybody that part of yourself. Who was raised on that message, by the way? How's that working for you? We have been raised historically to be less than fully ourselves. To use part of ourselves, but not all of ourselves. Because there's a part of ourselves that's appropriate. There's a part of ourselves that's good, desirable. But then there's this other part of ourselves that's not good enough. Here's the problem. Anybody here have money? Like to use money? I like to use money. Which is the good side and which is the not good enough side? Thoughts? Tell me which part of the chair you're sitting on shouldn't be there. Or would you say all the pieces are necessary? Both sides of the money are necessary. Can't have an up without a down, a left without a right. Cannot have a human being without strengths and challenges. So if you need it all, why feel bad about any of it? Doesn't make sense. Again, like I said, the challenges that you have are the openings the universe has provided you to need others. My wife Kathy and I amaze people with how complementary we are. It's almost a perfect fit in terms of how we think, how we see the world. And we actively seek each other out for that. Because when we do, our experiences are enriched more than I can tell you. I'm auditory, she's visual. I see things in the world now I didn't know existed for my 40-some years because she points them out to me. If I would have just said, nah, it's no big deal, it's fine. If you like it, it's okay, I'll support you. Or I could take the time to try and see what she sees. And life is far more vibrant. Every time my child learns something for the first time, I could say, oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, I learned that too. Or I could just be in that moment with my child and support them in the wonder that they're experiencing of having that realization for the first time. How many of you have done that with your child? And how many of you have said, oh yeah, well, yeah, pretty neat, huh? Yeah, I know that too. So, back to the first question. One of the many first questions. What is this parenting thing about? Because I know you all read your handbook, right? As soon as you were told you were going to have a kid, the handbook dropped out of the sky, right? So in terms of how to do the parenting thing, how do you do it? You said you have kids, right? You must have some information. Let the wife handle it. Teamwork at its finest. So what's your responsibility? If the wife handles it, why are you there? Rough house with the kids. So you're the instigator, and your wife is the cleanup crew. Did you and she agree to that? Probably not. Has she spoken up and said, honey, this isn't working for me? Not yet. Not yet. Or at least not in a way where it was effectively communicated. Possibly. When you see the way she handles things, are you ever in awe? Say, man, she does it so well. I wish I knew how to handle that. So if you have seen that, do you ever ask her for advice, suggestions, instruction?
We were raised in different households, so I fly off the handle more, so she handles more of it.
You're raised in different households, you fly off the handle. So you react instead of consciously responding. Instead of choosing your response, you react. Then she comes in and does what?
He usually yells at me for something for the way I handled it.
Yells at you for the way you handled it. So, what are he and his darling wife modeling for the kids in terms of conflict resolution? Is that self-evident? Now, if you're not conscious, it's not your intention to do that, but it is the result. Because you are not consciously aware that everything you say and everything you do is giving your child the blueprint for how it is done. Make sense? So how do you parent? You mentioned the household you came from had something to do with it. Did you have role models that do it the way you do it?
Oh yes, do it exactly like my parents did it.
Do it exactly like your parents do it. When they would go off on you, did you sit there and say, oh yeah, that's how it's done?
No.
So if it didn't work for you, why duplicate it?
It's a slow process, but I'm slowly calming down.
Slowly calming down. So what are you doing instead?
Talking softer, not screaming, yelling.
Okay? You're talking softer. If you're not screaming, what are you then doing?
Just talking.
Because if you're not working with the head of the coin, you're working with the tail. So it's not just stopping doing something, it's starting something else. How many of you raise your kids according to the doctrine of stop it? Stop doing that, put it down, knock it off. But that's the end of it. There's no instruction on what to do instead, what'll be more effective, what'll work better. You just create this vacuum. Stop it. Now your child is left to freeze. They have no idea what will work better for you, what will work better for them, what will work better for the situation. How many of you, when you think about your effectiveness as a parent, say, my kid stops it better than anyone? Is that a measure of success? And yet that seems to be one of our main goals for our kids. Stop it. And what message do you give them when you're always saying, stop it? Be more specific. Negative. If everything they do to try and explore the world, to experience cause and effect, is met with stop it, you're saying, don't take risks, don't take chances, don't experience, don't experiment. Being curious is going to get me criticized. Asking questions is going to get me blown off. Told that I'm a nuisance, told that I'm interrupting. Trying to connect with you is met with frustration. If a child's trying to do something and they ask for your help and you get impatient, oh, give me that. What message did you just give them? My needing your assistance is a bad thing. I messed up. Anybody else raised with that message? There's a hand back here.
I have a child who does almost the opposite. He never asks for help for anything. That is equally as frustrating. And he's only 8, so
How old is he?
he's 8 years old.
8 years old, never asked for help for anything.
He doesn't. No, he wants to do everything himself, which is fine for the first 5-6 hours in a day. But then, after a while, by 6 o'clock at night, I am a lot of times in that, just stop, because.
So
how do
he
you
wants to
deal
do
with that
everything
kind
for
of situation?
himself, but here's the reality. How many things do you actually help him with that he didn't ask for help for?
It used to be a lot more. I've backed down, and I actually consciously wait for him to struggle with something before I say, geez, can I help you with that? A lot of times he'll just go, no, and, either pour milk all over the counter or something,
So does he,
But I
What-
consciously am much better at
does
it.
he wash his own clothes?
No, not yet. No, not at 8.
Okay. Does he cook his own food?
No.
So he gets help whether he asks for it or not.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah.
So
But I mean,
if he
he's
says
8,
that if
so
he says
he's
that
not-
he
I'm-
doesn't want to ask for help, the fact is he's getting help. Where in his thinking did he draw the conclusion that if he needs the assistance of someone else, he's a failure? Because if he would rather sit there and spill milk and have it just go disastrously wrong before asking for help, there's a belief in there that says, I'm not good enough if I need someone else.
Ooh, I don't know.
Anybody else thought that at some point? Why?
Well, I was 14, I was diagnosed with Asperger's.
Mhm.
And my mom always said, you have special needs, you need help with everything. And she always looked down on me as, thank you. She always looked down on me as someone who was different than my brother and sister. I was always the one that had to have help, that had to, have my dad take care of me all the time. And now I'm a mother, I'm married, and I have 3 children, all are on the spectrum. So, I mean.
You are now a mother, you are married, you have kids that are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Except for the mother part, you and I have a lot in common. I'm a father part. But you said at 14 you were diagnosed with Asperger's.
Yes.
Your mother told you you had special needs, you need help with everything.
But when I asked for help, she looked at it as a sign of weakness, like, why can't you do this on your own? What's wrong
There
with
we
you?
go.
Like crying was a sign of weakness, or asking for help in picking out groceries for the week was a sign of weakness. And if I asked for help, I was, inferior, or I was bad or something.
Asking for help is a sign of weakness. It means that you've messed up. It means that you can't step up. Who else has gotten that message? How many believe it?
You're told so many times that you can't do anything without help. When you are faced with a time when you need help, you're afraid to ask for help because asking for help is showing a sign of weakness. Like with my almost 4-year-old is autistic. When I need help handling him when he's throwing a fit, if I ask her for help, she's like, well, you decided to have kids. You knew it would be hard. What are you doing asking me for help? How?
Okay, so you're being blamed for the fact that you can't do it all.
Yeah.
Amazing. How many have gotten the message that if you ask for help, it's a sign of weakness? And with the conversation we've had so far, asking for help is one of the very things that allows us to connect with each other. And yet there's this essential belief that people have that's all about pushing others away.
My son used to be afraid to ask for help until he started working with Brian because he was afraid, he didn't know what kind of reaction he would get from the person that he asked for help with. So instead, he just wouldn't ask for help from anybody. But he learned strategies from Brian. on how to ask for help and how to clarify his needs. But he used to be just afraid because if he didn't know, a teacher might yell at him or he might get dysregulated, so he just was quiet, didn't ask for help ever. He was afraid.
So now that he does ask for help,
Yeah.
what's changed?
Everything. He's amazing. He can self-advocate now, and he's learned that to clarify if he needs, he knows now how to ask for help, and he's clarified with people he comes in contact with, if I may use your technique. You know, he clarifies, how do I get help from you if I need help? You know, before when he starts with somebody new, if I'm going to need your help, when should I ask for help? How should I ask for help? How will you react? And so now he feels comfortable, and he knows when to ask for help and how to ask for help. So he had to be taught it like a school subject or something.
So if you deny yourself the right to ask for help, you are assuming that you know everything, you have everything, you're good at everything, and if you're not, you've screwed up. You're expecting yourself to be superhuman. And your parent is giving you that message. You have to have it all together. And why do you think they're giving you that message?
Because they're unhappy themselves.
Maybe because that's their belief. That was part of their inheritance from watching their parents with the feedback they got. No one ever came in and said, that belief you have that denies yourself the right to allow others into your life to contribute their strengths to you. Where'd that belief come from? And how's that working for you? Is your life as full as it could be? Or is there room for more to come in? But no, if you have to be independent, you have to know it all. How on earth can anybody contribute anything to you?
May I flip the coin a little bit, though?
Oh, please flip the coin.
Just for some of the other parents a little bit. I think there's a point, though, where my wife and I, for example, many years prior to having our own child that was on the autism spectrum, were blessed with somehow being steered to the direction of working in the human services prior to this for 20 years, and a lot of our upbringing professionally was to make sure that absolutely every opportunity was given to make sure that this person, you know, tries things for themselves and learns on their own and becomes able to advocate for themselves and do things for themselves. But I also don't, now that I'm a parent on the other end of it a little bit, I also don't want the parents to feel like a failure for having to turn to them sometimes and say, okay, you do need to help yourself with this a little bit. There's a lot of cases where they've gotten so good at asking for help that if we were to help them with every step of that daily routine, never would we get through the day. And so a lot of times we got to say, okay, look, I've helped you with this before, and I'm happy to go through it again with you when we've got some time. But today, I gotta get you to just go ahead and make some of your own choices, and we'll learn from that as we go. I mean, I don't want to leave the impression that sometimes as parents, I think in order to get from the end of the day to the beginning, or excuse me, the beginning of the day to the end of the day, sometimes we have to say, you know, I can help you with this, I can't help you with this today.
So you're talking about setting boundaries.
Yep.
And when I said earlier on about speaking up and sharing your brilliance with the room, great example just now. Thank you. And a lot of what you described, there's so much in your statement that is so essential to this conversation. That, you know, where do you help? Where do you not help? Where do you back off? Where do you encourage them to do more? One of the reasons you encourage them to do more is to push them to the edge of where their ability reaches its threshold and they need someone else to step in. You help too much, they never get to experience how far they can go, how far they can push themselves. They don't get to learn what their strength is. So encouraging them to do it yourself, do it longer, do it faster if you can. You're letting them experience their own competence. Look what I can do, look how far I can go. But when they ask for help, you ever see a relay race where they kind of pass off the baton to each other? Are they failing because they didn't do the race by themselves? It's set up that way. You go as far as you can go and you hand it off to the next person. So that's what we're doing when we're asking for help. In setting those boundaries, in that day, that's not setting a boundary for the entirety of your relationship with that child. That's setting a boundary in that moment. There's one example happened a couple years ago with my oldest son. I was exhausted after a very long day. I barely had the attention to stay awake. I wanted to go lay down. He had all this energy. He wanted to tell me something. And I just couldn't attend to him. I didn't have the energy. And I said, I really want to hear you, but I'm so tired. Give me a chance to rest. And he heard me saying I a lot because he was so insistent on telling me, notice, let me tell you this one thing. I said, I'm just so tired. Can we talk later? He says, all you think about is yourself. My response to him was, no, I also think about myself. I think about you and me. And right now you really want my attention. And I want to give you that attention. But in order to give it to you, I need to rest first. If I tried to give it to you now, I wouldn't hear you. And you deserve to be heard. So I need to rest so that I can be ready for that. And if you really want to be heard by me, let me rest a little bit. When I get up, I want you to tell me everything you want to tell me right now when I can hear it. That is being purposeful. That is being conscious. Because you're not just saying, leave me alone, I'm too tired, I can't do it right now. That sends a very different message. Now, okay, question here?
I think one of the issues as a parent is you're trying to strike the balance between fostering that independence and that ability to do things for themselves and what, allowing them to ask for help. Because I guess one of the biggest fears as a parent of, a child on the spectrum or any child is that they're going to be able to take care of themselves when you're not around. So I think that's kind of an issue where you want your children to be able to ask for help, but you want them to be able to do things and move and function throughout their day independently, doing the things and building off the skills that they need to know so that they are going to be able to be independent, so that they, you want both. You want them to be able to ask for help, but you want them to be able to do it for themselves as well, what they're able to. And I think a lot of the problem, too, is especially with, my two boys, is some skills, they have such excellent skills over here, and they're lacking over here. So it's trying to, have the conversation and trying to make it appropriate for, okay, well, are they understanding what I'm asking them? Or do I need to rephrase this? Or, where's the breakdown here? And that can be very difficult to figure out sometimes.
Well, you and I need to work together for about 6 months so we can get through all that. And because of one of the wonderful aspects of my neurology is the ADD, so I don't remember everything that you said. But in terms, the one thing that really jumped out, you said, well, they're really good in some areas and not so good in others. So your child has strengths and challenges. You're raising a human being. So if that's the case, you teach them what strengths they have, you help them experience those strengths, what problems can be solved with those strengths. Because being effective in life is all about being able to solve the problems of life. If something breaks, who do you call? How do you do it yourself? If you don't have enough food in the fridge, where do you go? How much does it cost? How do you budget? You're solving those problems. Raising your child successfully is about teaching them how to solve the problems of life. In the areas where they don't have those skills, then you teach them how that problem gets solved. If they're unable to do it, how does that problem get solved? Who can solve that problem? How do you access that person's strengths to help you solve that problem? If it wasn't for my accountant, I'd be in federal prison because of the IRS. My math stinks.
What if your weaknesses are the same as your children's, though?
Okay? Ask that question again.
What if your weaknesses and the things that you find challenging are the same challenging things for your children? So they can't look at you as the asset for this particular area because...
If they can't look at you as an asset because you have the same challenges, what on earth are you going to do?
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, a lot of times I see, with myself, some of the things that I struggle with, my children struggle with as well. So it's like, well, how are you going to help teach something if you're not good at it yourself?
How are you going to get the information you need?
Right.
Because you have that challenge.
Exactly.
Do you have an answer?
No.
Please.
Find somebody else who can solve that challenge. Like when we're doing homework and I don't know how to do a certain math problem, we'll call Grandpa John.
Because what was interesting is I was asking that question. It sounds like it didn't occur to you that you could ask for help. Did I hear that correctly?
Pretty much, I guess. Yeah, just, it's not.
I'm not good at it, son, so you get to suck at it too. So where didn't you allow yourself to ask for help? Why not? One of the best moments that Kath and I have with our boys is when they come and ask us a question that we don't know the answer, we say, well, you know what? That's a darn good question. And I bet there's a pretty awesome answer. Let's go find out together. Ooh, now we're going to have an adventure. Nowhere in that statement did you say, man, I guess we're both stupid. You turn it into an opportunity to learn how to do what? Solve a problem. Your job as a parent is not to be the smartest kid in the room. Your job as a parent is to teach your child how to solve the problems of life, how problems get solved. So if you deny yourself the right to ask for help, you don't model that as a potential solution. It is critical that as part of a human being that you model your ignorance. Well, you know, I don't know that. That's a good question. Let's go find out. You don't get your child to learn to ask for help by demanding that they do so. Well, ask for help when you need it. But then when they do ask for help, you have this belief that asking for help is not a good thing. So they come to you and they ask for help, and you operate from that belief, not from the instruction you gave them. You don't operate from the, thank you, I told you to ask for help, and that's what you did. Bravo. You operate from your belief that it's a bad idea. Then you say, did you try it yourself first? How many times did you try it? You're giving up too soon. Well, I don't know that either, and I'm supposed to know everything. And if I don't know everything, and I admit I don't know everything, I run the risk of others knowing that I don't know everything by asking for help. I can't let them know that, because that part of me is not good enough. So let's just pretend there is no answer. And we'll both remain ignorant together, because that'll bring us closer. It's all about being on the same page and being connected, and hey, sharing ignorance is a good place to be in. Or you could connect with your child by teaching them the adventure of problem solving, being curious. The fact that we're having this conversation demonstrates that there is room in your thinking to ask for help. Otherwise, I don't think you would have spoken up. So when you leave here, I imagine you're going to be pulling over, asking strangers for help just because. Excuse me, sir, I bet you know a lot of things I don't know. I'm giving you 5 minutes. Sometimes it's fun to ask for help simply because you want to create in the other person the opportunity that they are useful, that they have value. Because you may know everything, but when in your day do you feel like, you know what, this is one of those days where I don't need to feel significant. I can feel useful tomorrow. You ever have a day where you just need to feel like you matter? What you say, what you think, what you do has value. And if you have that need, the only way it can be met is if someone else has what you need. That if your strengths has value to someone else. And they feel the same way. They feel significant, like they matter, like they have value because their strengths are needed by others. Asking for help is not only not a sign of weakness, it is the best opportunity you have to help other people feel that their existence on this planet has value because they got to contribute to you today. So by asking for help, do you realize that you are actually performing an act of service to your fellow human being by allowing them to be of service to you?
I have an 8-year-old who will not wipe himself after he uses the toilet, and I'm always telling him, well, I'm not going to be around forever to do this for you. And one day he came home from the bus just in tears, crying. He says, who's going to take care of me when you're not around?
Okay, so you told him sometimes, someday I'm not going to be around to help you. So you gave him two options. Utilize you or utilize no one. Do you realize that it's sometimes the message you're giving? I'm not going to be here forever. Someday I'm going to be dead. And you're going to be swooped up by the government and dropped off on a desert island, and you're on your own. Again, it's a matter of teaching him how that problem gets solved. The only options are not between you and no one. There's a young man that I know diagnosed with classic autism. A lot of motor issues. Has a tremendous amount of difficulty with self-care because his muscles just don't coordinate in a way where he can effectively do those things for himself. So if his body doesn't do it, all the willpower in the world won't make it happen. And yes, it is correct that you won't be there to do it forever. But that doesn't mean the option doesn't exist for him to bring someone else into his life to do that. This young man goes to college. Throughout the day, he needs someone there with him all the time. So to suggest that he must somehow succeed in the absence of others is saying that the definition of a fulfilling life must look the way I think it works. It must be without me, without other people. It must be solely by your own steam. You have a fulfilling life when your needs are met. Let's not get caught up in how that looks. Your needs are met the way they need to be met. If it's with help from a staff or from one other person, the problems of your life are solved. And they're solved differently for each of us. Why? Because we have different skill sets. We're not all good at the same stuff. Some things you can do your own. Sometimes you need the help of one person. Sometimes you need the help of a staff. What matters is that his needs can be met. So if he has difficulty doing that, and you're not going to be there forever, say, well, I'm not going to be here forever. Right now you're having a challenge with that. So if I can't do it, what do we do about it? How do we solve that problem? And the question is, how do we solve the problem? Not how do I solve the problem? How do you solve the problem? Because relationships are about we, about us. How do we work together to solve problems? Because when you talk about you and me in relationships, well, it's not my problem. What are you going to do about it? What are you saying about how problems get solved? They get solved in isolation. They don't get solved in collaboration. When in reality, if we're interdependent, they only get solved in collaboration. So if you're not asking for help, if you're discouraging asking for help, you are sending the message that problems do not get solved with others. Then you wonder why you walk through a lot of problems that remain unsolved. Make sense? Now, for those of you who grabbed a handout, and if not, I want you to picture this. There's a graphic that I put on there. It's 4 circles that are interconnected. And those 4 circles represent the 4 primary relationships in your life. The one with yourself, with other people, with your environment, and with your affiliations. Your affiliations are the things bigger than you. The causes you believe in, the church you belong to, the community you live in. And they all overlap because they're all connected. Do you realize that we're having all 4 relationships right now? You're having a relationship with yourself and reviewing your beliefs about things. How you see things, how you see yourself, what you believe about yourself. We're relating to each other. you're relating to me. This environment, some people, the temperature might be what you need it to be. It might be stuffy, there might be some allergens. There might be disconnect between you and the environment. I know driving in this morning was a challenge, but the kind of car you had, the kind of tires it had, perhaps helped make your relationship with that environment more effective because you had the right tools. We're here at an autism conference. This is an affiliation with a global community that we are connected with. And when you see those points of connection, those little areas in between, that's the space that exists between us. We all have that space that's empty until we put something in it. So we've been talking so far about how you respond to being asked for help. Do you react or do you respond? So in that moment, in that space, it is entirely up to you and the other person you're interacting with, what are you going to put there? It starts with your attention, your awareness, your conscious choice that you can put there whatever you darn well choose. It's not predefined. It's not this way or no way. It's not inflexible. It's whatever you choose to put there. Of all the things I could be doing with my time today, I chose to be here with you, to listen to you, to contribute to you, and to allow you to contribute to me. And of all the choices you could have made, you chose to be here too.
I have a 12-year-old son on the spectrum, and I'm kind of going back to the asking for help thing that this gentleman was talking about. And for him, I mean, he was diagnosed when nobody was really talking about autism in the community, so I used to do everything for him. And then I suddenly realized that he would quicker want to just ask me for help before he even attempted to try to see if he could do it. So we started just making him just try it first. And if he tries and it's still difficult for him, then we definitely would offer help. But even when he comes to us now to spell a word or whatever, did you try it? Yes, Mommy, I tried it. Okay, then we would go and help him. But it was really difficult to see him not even try, not even attempt, because it was easier. And that's for typical children too. It's easier to come and ask how to spell a word for me than to try to look it up. So I kind of wanted to go back to the fact that the sense of accomplishment that they feel when they do attempt it and try it and it's good is, for me, something that I wanted to see him have. And it was fulfilling for him to say, oh, Mommy, look what I did, because I can do it. You know? I mean, instead of getting to a place where he was asking for help for every single thing that I knew he could do.
So has he gotten to the point now where he tries it himself?
Yes, not all the time, because, okay, he's 12 and it's simpler to ask me sometimes, but for the most part, or he'll know that when he comes to me and it's something that, you know, he'll look at my face and say, okay, I'll go back and try it, you know, and then come back to me. But the sense of accomplishment when he's able to do something that he didn't even think he was going to be able to do was worth it for me, you know, because now he'll try a little bit more. He's out there, he'll ask a question, whereas before it was quicker to just come to Mommy for help.
Now let's examine what you just said, and this is a wonderful example. You were saying that sometimes his motivation is because it was quicker, it was easier. Mm-hmm. Is that the only experience he was looking for?
With my son, not all the time, but most of the time, because as you probably know, in his world, it was just trying to get to the end result. The journey wasn't as important to him.
Try to get to the end result. How?
Like right now, if he wants to get on some website, he wants to get to the website. So if he's not 100% sure how to spell the word, it's easier for him to come to me and ask how to spell the word so he can go to the website, not try to learn how to spell the word.
Let me fill in the gaps here. Wants to get there without the experience of frustration, without the experience of resistance, without the experience that he can't. Because as much as you talk about one side of the coin, just he needs to feel that experience of accomplishment. Well, what's the other side of that coin? If you don't pull it off, if you're not effective, what feeling do you have then?
But.
No, don't, not but.
No, definitely but.
No.
Because.
Answer the question first.
Okay, you do
What
have the
experience do you have?
You do have the frustration, which we all have, is the frustration. It is not a situation where I would let him wallow in the frustration. I'm only asking that whatever he wants to do, that there's an attempt made. Not that he's never in a situation with, well, when he's around me, where it's an all day full of frustration. But if he attempts it, then a lot of times he's seen that he's able to do it.
Let's step back a little bit.
Sure.
I'm going to paraphrase what you said a little bit. I don't let him wallow in his frustration. Do you ever take a moment to at least acknowledge it?
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
Absolutely. I stop, I look at him eye to eye, I get to him, I'm just like, I know, because especially when he was 4 and he didn't have a lot of language, a lot of it I could see on his face. I see that you really want to do this. Or it's like, a lot of it was about video games. I could see that you really want to accomplish this particular feat in the video game. It's difficult. Let's see if we can find another way to do it. Let's see if we can find another way to get all of the points or whatever
Do you mind if I recommend a little tweak to that?
Sure.
Because when you say, it looks like you really want to get somewhere, you're looking ahead. Remember what I said at the beginning here?
Mm-hmm.
Let's be here. When you're attending to a child, you acknowledge where they're at. If you're asking for directions to get anywhere in life, what are they going to ask you? Where are you at now?
Right.
Well, I don't know. Just tell me how to get where I'm going. Well, I need to know where you're at. No, you don't. Just tell me how to get there. If your child's experiencing frustration, if they're going to develop self-awareness, if they're going to honor all of themselves and their humanity, they need you to sit there and acknowledge and value the fact that in this moment, you're experiencing frustration. In this moment, yes, it's easier to ask me, maybe because you're impatient, or maybe because some part of you thinks that you're a failure if you didn't do it yourself. And you're so afraid of that experience, you'll ask me to do it for you instead of risking that experience. Now, when you think about the experience you want your child to have, you want him to experience success. If you blow right past the reason why he doesn't do it, you don't give him an opportunity to connect with that experience.
But I think what I was doing is more paraphrasing this for this conference.
Oh, yeah. And I know darn well that you probably get it spot on.
Well, no, I'm just kind of telling you that we stop and when I said I go to him face to face, it's about being in the moment. And it's about saying, you know, even when there's tears about it, because there used to be a lot of tears when he was frustrated. It's about getting to him there, right? But I guess my thing was I didn't want it to seem as if having him do things or try to do things himself was a bad thing, when sometimes, at least for him, being 12, I see that it did work for him. He does enjoy trying and doing stuff for himself, and the accomplishment he gets if he's able to do it.
Yes, and you and I having this dialogue is benefiting everybody else in this room.
Right.
So your bringing that up was fantastic. Thank you for that. It's brilliant. And they get to see your example. Because if so many of you think that this is going to be a huge undertaking to do it that way, now you just heard her say that she does this. It's doable. It's effective. And the experience that it has for her son. Because when you help him get in touch with his frustration, and then you also help him get in touch with the other side of it, he learns that there is another side to it. And he learns how to get there. So it's not about, oh, I want it to be easy, I want it to be fast, I want to avoid frustration because it feels bad, I don't want to feel like a failure. Okay, well, you're not a failure. You're in action, you're in process, you're on your way. You work through that experience to get to the experience you want. Question back there?
Yes. I have a 7-year-old little girl that has autism, but she has regular full-blown autism. She's doing very, very well, but my problem is I have a lot of guilt because
What's that?
I have a lot of guilt because I don't feel like I have all the time to offer her that I should have to offer her. In the morning, it's time to go to school. Guess how she gets dressed? I dress her while she's still asleep because it's just easier that way. It takes less time. For me to have to get up that extra 30 minutes in the morning to be able to sit down and work with her on getting dressed, I'm already exhausted most of the time. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with, I know that she has to learn this, but I also know that I don't always have the time to put forth to teach her things. And then the guilt, too, of I send her to school. They don't work with her there like they should. And she comes home, and then I have to compensate for 8 hours, 9 hours gone when I don't have that 8 or 9 hours. What do we do?
So your child is more classically autistic. How old?
She's 7.
So you get her dressed before she's even woken up.
Yes.
You send her to school that's not on the same page with you, is that correct?
Yes.
Then when she comes home, you feel like you're doing a lot of spending a lot of time undoing the damage of the day.
Yes. The school teacher even sends the classwork home with her because I have more success doing it with her. So sometimes she doesn't get her homework done for a day or two because we just don't get the chance to do it. There's some things that I know I need to work on, but it just takes so much time to work on it, and I spend a lot of time giving in because I feel like there's so many people that aren't providing her the support she needs,
So
including
I mentioned,
me.
and this is a classic example of a breakdown in the 4 relationships: yourself, other people, your environment, your affiliations. Where are your needs not met as a parent?
Not getting full cooperation with everybody else. I mean, I have my child, someone over there was talking about going to the bathroom. I have my child, she will go to the bathroom at home, and I will go in there sometimes, and there's poop all over the toilet seat, on the countertop. She will get it on her hands. Guess where it goes after her hands? And at school, they don't even take her to the bathroom because they want her to be as independent as possible. So I guess I'm working a counterbalance. I feel guilty because they're trying to make her as independent, and I'm trying to fill the gap, and that's not right either.
Okay. And there are bigger problems in your situation. Your situation requires an intensive intervention, especially with the school system. So we can't spend a lot of time on that, but we definitely need to spend time on that. I just checked the time, and as usual, I got a little caught up in the conversation. So what I want to do at this point is to invite you all to stretch your legs, clear your minds a little bit. Take about a 10-minute break, and come back in under 10 minutes so we can jump right back into the conversation, okay? See you in a little bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do ask that during the breaks that you hold questions for Brian. He needs time to rest and recoup during this time as well. But we will honor that question as soon as we reconvene.